Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Hey, fat fish heads. It's time for another edition of the hottest new podcast on all platforms, Fat Fish.
Here we go.
Sit back and strap yourself in for the
Where's
wildest
Lyndon?
ride on the open seas.
I hear him.
Now, flap your
I don't hear
fins
him.
for
Okay.
the
That's okay.
fabulous Fat Fish
Tell me
brothers.
when we're done.
Eric,
We're good to go.
Fish
Quit talking.
Snyder. And Brad Grunny Grunberg.
Oh, God, this is going to be crazy.
AKA Snacks.
Hit it.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
You're on, Brad.
Hey, number 94, everybody. Man, this is crazy. 94, Fish. Can you believe it?
94, and I was just having a little pregame in here with our guest, Mr. Ryan Bender, and he's got the Bills Mafia on.
Yep.
You're here. I got to say one thing before we start. We had a couple of guys on from Detroit. Our show last week, Brian, was Detroit themed, and we all picked the Lions to move on. But Brad, picked Buffalo. He's the only guy who picked Buffalo to actually make it to the Super Bowl. We all picked the Lions. So Brad's a guy that if you're handicapping, he's the winner.
You know who I learned that from? That guy in the middle, baby. That guy in the I said, wait a minute. Buffalo, they got the momentum. Josh Allen's getting married to a hot girl, a hot Jewish girl. I go, wait a minute. All the momentum is going my way, and they've lost so many Super Bowls. But we'll get into that. I want to start by telling you about this guy. We met on social, and we became instant friends, and he is the nicest guy. Other than all the businesses he has going, we'll talk about that. He's a family guy, beautiful wife. By the way, Ryan, I'm going to say something. You married up. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I know.
Okay, you married up. Oh, and your son is adorable. He's like little Bender. Oh, my goodness. Sunglasses. Oh, my God. So tell us how it all started. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have two brothers, both younger. I think that really helped build my competitive spirit when I was younger. We're constantly fighting as brothers do, but we're very close now. And so a good, close family growing up. I was lucky.
Yeah. Well, your parents did a great job. Let's talk about your dad and then your mom. Your dad instilled the greatness in you. What did he teach you growing up?
First and foremost, he's the one who bought me my first ever sports bet ticket. He had a tire shop, a little tire shop just north of Toronto. And I was like 9 or 10. And I used to go in and clean the wheels all day long. I'd just get a rag and polish the wheels. And he'd always give me $5 at the end of the day. So one day I go into his office looking for my pay. I'm like, hey, let's go, right? $5. And he's like, sit down. And I sat down at his desk and he pulled out this new thing called ProLine. It was like the first sports betting, and you could only bet 3-team parlays. So he's like, just pick 3 teams you think will win and we'll put your $5 on it and you can win more. So that was the year of the NHL expansion. So there was 3 new teams that were terrible. I think Ottawa Senators won like 6 games all year long. So I basically just faded those 3 teams and ended up winning just over $15. Like I won $10. Like my 5 turned into 15. And so there I am, like 9 or 10 years old. And I'm like, this is easy money. Little did I know it was a lot more complicated than that. But so my dad started, my love affair with that. And he's always been supportive of me. My mom's always supportive, but was not a fan of the idea of sports betting. And really, she gets it now. But at the time did not understand. She just thought, well, it's gambling. Like, how are you going to win at gambling? She understands now that what I do is closer to what a stockbroker does than a gambler. But my dad fully supported me. When I told him I was going to do this professionally, I was nervous. I had a lot of questions still because it was like uncharted territory. And I don't know if I actually would have gone forward with it if it wasn't for my dad, because he said, like, if whatever it is you want to do, if you put your heart and soul into it, I know you can do it. So, that was all the motivation I needed to get myself out to Vegas and do it.
Did you go to college?
No, I could not wait to get out of school. I was ready to take on the world, and I'm like, this is going to be really easy. It's not until like, you know, it's 17-year-old you's like, oh yeah, no, this is going to be easy. Not until you get out in the world and, you know, start getting kicked around a little bit that you find out it's a little bit tougher than you dreamed up. But no, I had no interest in doing post-secondary. And to be perfectly honest, like I tell, like my brother went to university, college. Like I told him, I'm like, you know, you're going to learn so much more in your first year in the real world than you will in 4 years of college. But here's the thing you want to do. And this is my tip for anyone going to school. Get to know everyone and be everyone's friend. Like, cause that's it. Like you're going to school with the future titans of industry and you never know. I told my brother, you know, get some names in your Rolodex. He had no idea what a Rolodex was. So I said, okay, get some names in your cell phone. And like, that's, you know, that's what it should be about, relationships and, you know, and enjoying yourself.
And Fish, he's very close to his father. You were very close to your dad, and your dad instilled some greatness in you. Correct, Fish?
The greatness of the Raiders lies in its future, and that's what you learn. So speaking about futures, because that's a word that he uses a lot, Ryan Bender does, and knows that. I got to jump in. Okay, Brad, see? There's no future for Brad. He'll get back in.
There I am.
Right, this is it, man. This is championship weekend. All right, you got the Bills Mafia on. Let me tell you what William Hill has out right now, because I live in Las Vegas.
Yep.
So I have more vernacular. So right now for the Commander game against the Philadelphia Eagles, the morning game, basically 12 o'clock noon here on the West Coast, the Philadelphia Eagles are -6, over under 47.5.
Yep.
What would you do on that one, Ryan? Or do you have a site where we can go and get that? Or can you give us some of your tips right now?
Actually, well, both of those. And I'll share with you exactly what I've done and what I'm planning to probably do for this weekend. I do have a site for those people who are interested. I started something called Masterclass. Been going now over 5 years. Brad is actually a lifelong member. You were with me like pretty early on. But Masterclass, I designed it because there was just so much noise and craziness in the sports betting industry and so many lies that I'm like, this is the reality of sports betting. The guy's talking about winning 70%. I'm like, no, we win 54 to 56%. Like the greatest of all time, Billy Walters, 157. So I just wanted to get rid of all the misconceptions out there. So I started doing a lot of educational stuff. And then people were like, give us your picks, bro. So I'm like, all right. So I started doing that. It's been going over 5 years now. And you can check it out, benderwins.com.
Benderwins.com.
Yes, sir.
We'll put that on our website. Benderwins.com.
Yep. And it's called Masterclass. I tried to make it affordable for everyone, $99 a month. I feel like most people can, you know, afford that, because I know, like, you know, some of the guys who I know from Vegas, like who are legit guys who work exclusively, like they're charging 5 figures, you know, for their stuff, but they're dealing with ultra high net worth individuals. So anyways, back to the original. I'll tell you what I already have. I have the under. Okay. I got the under 2 ways in Philly. So number one, I bet the game under, expecting probably a little bit of wind, a colder day. So weather, I think, could be a factor. It concerns me a little bit to see a line that high in a playoff game. But we have seen some concession from Vegas in terms of dropping that line down a little bit. So I bet the under in that game. I just think the total's too high. Like, I think that should be a 45.5, 46. So we're getting a couple points, which doesn't happen too often in NFL. And the second way I bet it, I have Washington team total under 21.5. And that was a smaller bet. The larger of the two is my game total under. I don't think I'm going to, I won't say for sure that I'm not going to have a play, but as of right now, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Like, I find it very hard to bet against this Washington team. They almost seem like that team of destiny, but every other sharp I talk to and everything I see in terms of the steam, and if you watch the line movement, like, everyone's on Philly. Like, that line has moved steadily. You got a bunch of steam on Philly and everyone is really heavy on Philly. But at the same time, it's like, do you want to bet against a team? I don't know what's Washington won now, 7 in a row, 8 in a row. Like, they're rolling.
Yeah.
You know,
well, and that's it. You know, I remember my kids saying to me, Dad, why is there an injury report every day on Twitter and in the paper and stuff like that? And why do you do the weather every 10 seconds on these games? It's for the betting line. It's for the bettors. Yeah. All right. If it's a snowball, it's probably going to be an under. Let's go to the afternoon game, and one that really intrigues you the most. I see the Bills Mafia.
Yeah.
The Raider Nation, we are all on the Bills Mafia. So is Brad. Brad picked them to go to the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs, Brad, are a 1.5, which is almost an even. And it's over under 48.5. I'm gonna make some bets based on what you say there, Bender Rules. Bender wins.
All right. So important thing is sports betting. The most important thing is sports betting is you got to bet with your mind and not your heart. Right. And I came out and I said years ago, you're not a true professional sports bettor until you bet against your own team in an elimination game, which I did years ago. I bet against the Toronto Raptors, and again, Game 7 against Philadelphia. I bet Philly because the line was so wrong, and it was a big bet. And I refused to watch the game, and the Raptors got knocked out, and I won my bet, and I was still miserable. So you have to look at this stuff objectively and remove all your emotion from it. This is the way that I want to play this game, and I just have to figure out how I'm going to do it. So my concern, to be perfectly honest with you, is the relationship the Kansas City Chiefs have with the NFL, just kind of coddling them through. And the refs always seem to play some kind of role or some influence. It seems like we're always talking about it seems like we're always talking about the refs on Monday morning and not the game. And, it's something that concerns me. But the way that I want to look to bet this is that line opened at 1. It moved to 1.5. There's something called a Wong teaser, which I'm sure Brad is familiar with, and you probably are. But a Wong teaser, you have your 2 key numbers in football. Your big key numbers are 3 and 7. Well, if we can do a 2-team 6-point teaser, we can take Buffalo over to the other side of that. We can move them to plus 7.5. And that is how I want to play the game. But my conundrum is this. Who do I tease it with? Okay, I could tease Philly down to 0, but you're losing value because 0's not a point. I could tease Washington up to 12, but again, you're crossing over 7 and 10, which 10 is the third most likely number, but I'm not even sure I want to do that. I'm certainly not going to tease a total. So I'm open to suggestions on what I do, but I think if you can find a way to tease the Bills and a 2-team teaser and get them up past 3, past 7, Kansas City wins games. But they're not very good at covering spreads. They win a lot of close games. This could come down to a field goal one way or the other. So that's how I want to play it, with a teaser.
Brad, can I ask him one more question? Because
no. Can I? Am I on the show? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Well, this is sports betting, and I do it, and you don't. Long teaser. Brad knows what a short teaser is. He pulls his pants down, and that teases because it's short. That.
Leave the funny to me, buddy.
No, you laughed also. Leave the funny. Look at that shirt. Anyways,
like a Wong teaser.
Huh? Prop bets, because I'm big into prop bets. My brother in LA, when the Super Bowl comes up, I'm gonna hit up Bender Wins. I'm gonna jump in because I'm into prop bets, and there's no bigger prop bet situation than the Super Bowl. Do you get involved in that? Do you put it on your site? Do you look at it as a gimmick? What do you think?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, I'll give you a good example. So I'm very heavy around Super Bowl in terms of props. I mean, there's so many options out there that like here's the advantage a sports bettor has, okay? Because at the end of the day, look, we got to pay minus 105, minus 110, minus 115 juice on these bets, but
minus 1, okay.
We have the edge in that they have to set a line for every single prop, every single game. We can pick and choose the ones that are wrong. Right. So I did do a lot of props over for as long as I've been doing, but last couple of years, especially as legalized gambling has become more widespread, there's more props, which means more potential for value. And I think it's important that, like, from a professional sports betting standpoint, a couple of years ago, I did a video that I was absolutely dreading doing. I tried to film it like 3 times, and I'm like, okay, I just got to film this and do it, because I had to come out and tell all my subscribers, I have thousands of subscribers. I had to come out and tell them, I do not have a pick for you on the Super Bowl, because it was an efficient line. So I did have a bunch of props. Okay. I had a bunch of props. We bet props. We ended up having a great year. We won in the Super Bowl, but people are like, well, like, who do you like? I'm like, do you like this team or you like that? I didn't have a play on the over or the under, and I didn't have a play on the side because the lines, in my opinion, were efficient. So it takes discipline as a sports bettor to come out and be like, I don't have a play on the Super Bowl. Like everyone, as certainly every scam artist out there always has a play on every big game, but that's just not how it works. Like value is where it is. Like you can't control where value is going to be. And I just didn't see an edge. But so to make your short question long, yeah, I do a lot of prop betting on the Super Bowl. And I think that's where you can find the majority of the value. Typically nowadays, like, with all the sharps betting on this, like the lines do become pretty efficient as you get close to game time.
What's great about Ryan is if he wins or loses, he always says it's the long game. If you want to win quick, don't subscribe to me.
Yeah.
And then when he loses, he talks about it. He doesn't run away from the losses. He explains why maybe we lost and this happened. But it's all about inches, I think, in sports and in life. Because look at the tight end from Baltimore. He dropped the ball, right? He would have tied the game. I mean, it was right in his breadbasket, right? But you know what's great about Buffalo fans? They did a GoFundMe and gave money to his charity, which is diabetes. I mean, for kids.
60,000. Yeah.
I know. Isn't that fantastic?
I didn't hear that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I just heard that on the news. But Ryan, he talks about it. He walks you through it. It's $99, right, Ryan, for the master class?
Yeah, I always say for the price of less than a Starbucks coffee a day, switch to homebrew Maxwell House, and then you're in master class. But I do think it's very important that people understand that if you are the greatest sports bettor in the world, like Billy Walters, you're going to lose like 43% of your games. So sure. It's not like a crazy high success rate. And the only reason, people have these numbers in mind where they see an advertisements hitting 70% or hitting 75% is because this industry is just ripe with scammers and liars. And it was actually, maybe I won't say his name on here, but it was one guy in particular, the reason that I did my first video on social media like 7 years ago, because he had this thing on saying like, we're hitting 70% winners over the last 20 years and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is like such crap. So I literally just did one video. I had no intention of ever doing this publicly. I did one video and was like, I'm a professional sports bettor. This is the reality of how it is. And I just kind of broke down. I'm like, we don't win 70%. My first year in Vegas was like a crazy struggle. It's not like yachts and girls on your yachts and all that. Like that is like marketing shit. You don't get that when you're starting out. Right.
Yeah, there are con men in this business, so many. And I don't want to mention any names, Vegas Dave. But I don't want to mention any other guys, Steve Stevens.
Steve Stevens. He was the guy. He was the guy who had that like BS ad that I'm like, I have to like, I'm like, I have to set this straight. Like I just have to. I didn't even name him. And I'm just like, forget all the noise out there. Right. This is the reality of sports betting. And like I've actually said this, like on Take Your Kid to Work Day. Do you guys have that in the States? Take Your Kid to Work Day? Yeah. On Take Your Kid to Work Day, my son is going to be the most bored kid in his entire class because sports betting is not like, cruising on yachts. I sit in front of, I got 4 monitors up here. I got one here and I got a big 80-inch TV. I stare at numbers for 12 hours a day and that's it. I mean, he's going to be bored out of his mind.
I doubt it because your kid's going to have the wisdom to know how to win a 3-card Monty and numbers. What was the Brooklyn number today? Oh, let's go to Ryan. What's your kid's name?
Chase.
What's the Brooklyn number? Brad does a great imitation. He's right. The Vegas, all these guys have that 1-800 number, and it's always they can be from Idaho and they all have a New York accent. I got the winning play today on the Buffalo Bills. It's a lock. And they're all full of shit. Over and unders. I'm big on that for teams. Mm-hmm. Every year, I'm going to do it again this year. Baseball. I know you do all sports, right? So, the master class is all sports. I look at one team. I'm going to bet it for me and Brad and give the money to charity. I look at the over-unders and wins. And 2 years ago, it was over and under. I beat the Cleveland Indians with 65. I bet the over. And they did it. Yeah. So, you provide those services for over and unders like for all sports?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, where there's value, I do futures bets. So like this year in hockey, for example, we have a number of plays where we're looking at team points for the year. So how many points we go over under, and then some player props as well, where we, bet on, certain players to be over under their point total for the year. And my tendency on a lot of the player ones is towards the under, especially with some of the injury prone guys. But I also do think Vegas is pretty good at shading the lines to kind of factor that in on on a per capita kind of basis for all the players. So there's, I feel like still a good edge where like certain areas when legalized sports betting come in, the edge has gotten better and better and better. But there's other areas where it's tightened up a little bit. And I feel like, at least in the NHL with the futures, like it's tightened up a little bit. The edges are a bit smaller, but baseball, the edges are very high. And if I could just say as a caveat, like baseball, my favorite sport to watch and that I love is football. Like I love football. Even being a Canadian, it's not hockey. Like I love hockey, but football is next level. As a sports bettor, my favorite sport by far is baseball, because there's so many variables the public doesn't look at. Like I'm out here, I'm looking at like air density. I'm looking at pitcher spin rates. Like I'm trying to figure out every little bit of edge, because I have formulas that I can look at and we can say, okay, like here's your air density, here's your wind speed. And I can say like, are we looking at an increase or decrease in fly ball travel? And then you're going to look at like ground ball or fly ball pitcher, right? I mean, if you have like, get yourself a 12% increase in expected ball travel, and you've got a fly ball pitcher, like he's probably going to have a bad day.
Ryan wears a lot of hats. He's also a weatherman. I don't know if you knew that, Fish, but he is incredible. I mean, how many businesses do you have? The other two he is part of. He's part of the consensus pick every day, and also this company called AI, which comes out with a pick every week.
Yep. Quant Sports AI. So I can't remember the name of the school. They changed the name of the school, but some of these guys were out of like Ryerson, which is a big technology school. And they basically started this as a project. It wasn't like a thesis, but they started this as a project with AI, simply to use this as like their resume to say, look, I did this, and they wanted to get jobs with like, Tesla, Google, Apple, so a couple of the original guys have gone off and done their own thing, but they brought me in relatively early because one of the guys working on the projects, like we grew up together, so he knew that I could help them because they understood how to program it, but what they didn't understand is how and what to tell it to do, right? Or what to look for, because really with AI, like I learned so much, like I knew nothing about it, and I still know only that much, but it's amazing that like AI, the best way to describe it when you're beginning is like a baby that knows how to breathe and nothing else. Like you have to teach it how to move. You have to teach it how to, so like you literally have to tell it like every little bit of instruction, but you have to be clear and concise. And the prime example is like one of the first picks this thing ever spit out. And I talked about this. It was like a money line in a college football game, and the team was like a -38 favorite, and it gave out the money line. And I'm like, well, you're going to have a hard time going to your guys and giving out -10,000 plays on a thing. So it's like, it was a lot of, progress. And, I'm just fortunate to work with those guys. They're absolutely brilliant. And we just kind of, combined. I had the sports background and knowledge, and I try to tell them what information is relevant and what isn't. And they just make it happen. And last year, the first year, like I told them like, don't overpromise people. Like that's the worst thing you do is come out and overpromise. Like if you can do any profit, that's great. And I told them like, come out and say you'll do a 2 or 3% ROI and people love you for it. They came out and they said they were going to try for 5%. So I knew that was a mistake. And they ended up finishing the year at 7%, which to me is like impossible. Like I still don't know, how they did that, but so very excited about that. And, in a small way, I kind of feel a little bit like Billy Walters being involved with having computers before the sports books did. So that was it's exciting.
Did you ever meet Billy Walters, Ryan?
No, and I would love to. And it's funny enough, I actually got a picture of him right there behind me.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, that's great. Yeah. Hey, Fish, what's great about Ryan? He's got integrity, and I believe he learned this from his father. There are a lot of trolls out there, and there's this one clown who was in jail. He's across the pond. I call him Crocodile Dundee. I don't want to even say his fucking name. Yeah. He's a fucking clown, and Ryan went after him. And I don't know, what's the status now? He was talking all this noise about you.
Yeah. So I mean, again, my hypothesis is like that he doesn't have a whole lot of money. He claims to have a bunch of money. So I said, look, let's go heads up for $100,000, like winner take all. So, he accepted, but then when it came time to like actually do the rules, like I made it like really simple. And he agreed, like, because everyone on social media is watching, he agreed to it. But then when he sent it over to me, he had changed everything. Of course. So I'm like, all right, well, so then he comes, he's like, oh, look, Bender's afraid of me, backed out. So I'm like, you know what, let's make this really simple. I just started putting my free picks every day on Bet Openly, which is like peer-to-peer sports betting. And I'm like, look, I put every bet up there for $5,000. I said, go ahead and fade me, like show everyone that you're fading me. And I told him, like, I mean, my units, Brad, like I bet $25,000 a unit. So if he wants, I'll go 10,000, 20, 25,000. But again, then the excuses start. Like, so, you take what these people say with a grain of salt. And this is my experience, because when you put yourself out there in the sports betting world, there's expectations that you're going to hit 70%. It's just not possible. And like, I have like crazy runs. Like a couple of years ago, you probably remember, I won 14 free picks in a row that I gave out. And I was like the God. But then like I had a run last year, I lost 8 picks in a row. And it's like, you suck. Like,
yeah,
so
of course.
You're only as good as what you've done. But I just find that anytime I want to shut the trolls up, I just throw it a little bit of my money, and they scatter like cockroaches when the light comes on.
That's great.
There's an old saying, Brad, in Vegas that, Vegas knows the lines, and Vegas, you saw that, that they picked that, and look how it hit. So you and Chase are watching the game last week between Houston and Kansas City, and the line's 9.5. And the guy takes the safety on the last play of the game. Look at his face, Brad, to move it down to 9. You wouldn't believe the shit I heard in my bar about, there we go, Vegas knew it, someone had a big bet and stuff like that. I think that's horseshit when people say it. But can you see why people have conspiracy theories about gambling?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I think, as I said for that game, I had a very, very important lesson about beating the closing line, because I'll tell you exactly what I had in that game. I had Houston plus 8.5. So, and Houston plus 8.5. But here's the thing. I thought there was good value on that play. Had I waited, though, I wouldn't have been able to cover. So that's important about beating the closing line. I think, okay, so anytime you win, you just kind of like say, I won, I'm a great pick, like great sports bettor, that's great. When you lose, it's like people want to externalize it, right? They want to look for somebody to blame. And it's really easy to blame the NFL or, Vegas or whatever they want. So I'll say this, okay? And I think like this is fairly accurate. Are there sports out there right now? Are there games that are being fixed? Absolutely. In the NFL, I don't know. Unlikely, because you're dealing with such crazy amounts of money. But, the reality is, like, when you look at like small school college basketball, some of those guys are never going to go pro. So, they got a guy 3 states over they went to elementary school with, and he says, shave a few points off next week and I'll throw 10 grand your way. So it's happening, but people say, well, I can't bet on sports because then there's no integrity in it. But here's the thing. You're just as likely to be on the right side of a fix as you are to be on the wrong side of a fix.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
So, you go back, and I've had, a conversation. I'm trying to remember his name now. I got him on Facebook. I've talked to him quite a few times. The referee, the NBA referee.
Tim something?
Tim
Donahue.
Donahue.
Thank you. I've talked to him. He's actually a really fantastic guy. You should have him on your podcast. really cool guy, but like
if you can get him,
I can hook him up with you guys. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and he's very open about things, right? So like, he's a great guy to talk about, but again, you know, you hear these stories coming from like the NBA, and it's like, you know, they're never coming in and saying the refs, okay, we want you to fix this game. But instead they came into the dressing room. This happens in the playoffs, right? It's game 6. The Lakers are about to clinch this series, and they come in. There's an executive from the NBA yelling and screaming, saying, last game, you guys didn't call a single foul on Shaq. Kobe was traveling every which way. Either do your fucking job, or we're going to find a crew that will. And they run out, they slam the door. And the refs know exactly what that means. So it has not been said. That? Yeah.
I stopped watching the NBA. I watched the Netflix special that he did, the 3-part that Donnie he did. But when this happened, it was the 7th game between Sacramento and the Lakers. I'm a Laker fan. They called 36 fouls on Sacramento and 5 on the Lakers because they didn't want the Kings to go to the finals. And he has David Stern, Brad, on a phone thing. It's in the documentary. And he says, you'll never foul out this entire season. Shaq, Kobe Bryant, or Michael Jordan. That's a fix.
That's a fix. Yep.
And I lost it. Now, that's the integrity part of it that you could lose fans. If everything's rigged and it's scripted, who gives a why would you watch it? Right?
Yeah. I know that like my background, like, you know, I grew up playing hockey, and I played at a fairly high level. And I just know that like there's so much integrity in the game, and there's a culture within hockey that it would be very, very hard for, you know, someone to go to an NHL player and say, you know, you're going to lay down, you're going to give up a few goals tonight. Like, I just wouldn't see it happening. But again, you know, there's external factors such as like referees, and you just never know. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, we don't have to win 100% of our games. We don't have to win 70. We have to win 54 to 56%. And look, if there's a fixed job, it is what it is. You're just as likely to be on the right side of that fix as the wrong side. And I've seen games personally, college game. I've seen a college basketball game where I just shook my head. I've never seen a team try to throw a game in a worse way than this. Like, not even making it look good. I was on the right side of it. I'm like, thank you very much. This is a gift from heaven. Like, I'm out there live betting this shit like every 5 minutes, and like, because I'm like, they're throwing this game. I'm watching them throw this game. So I'm like, thank you very much. You know, and
you have, Ryan, how do you, I mean, there's 24 hours in a day. Okay. Mm-hmm. You got all these businesses. I know you sold a few, you told me, and then you have your family and your son. How do you, I mean, where does it start? Where does it end? Do you have a routine you do every day, or how does that work with you?
Yeah. And I mean, it's certainly becoming more challenging. And I do think this is a young man's game. Like, I was fortunate. I got started early, and, you know, back in the day when I first started in Vegas, like, we didn't have access to like the sites we have. So like, I used to literally sprint around Vegas. Like, guys used to just see me running around Vegas, like actually running, because I'd run from Caesars over to Bellagio and down the street to Treasure Island, and then over, like, always just looking for a better line. But it's a little bit more challenging, you know, with my time. But like, for my companies, I have very good management structures in place, and I have people that I trust that I put into those good positions. So like, my active involvement in those companies is fairly limited to, you know, a phone call a day with some companies, down to like once a week with like companies that are just running like smooth. Like, I'm involved with a solar company that I have a big ownership chunk in, and I do like once a week phone call. That's it. But like, the CEO of that company is like just on point. Like, he just is on top of things. So time management has become more difficult. But now that my son is here, I'll say that I still sleep a little bit less, because I don't want to sacrifice that time that I have with him. And it can be challenging some days, because, you know, when I get into sports betting, I kind of get like into this like hyper focus kind of, you know, my wife's come down and talked to me, and I've like not even heard her, and she'll be like, I told you all these things like 10 minutes ago. I'm like, you came down? So like, I try to, like, you know, once my son gets home, kind of separate that. And then after he goes down, I typically go out to the garage for a little bit, relax, and then get back into my capping. So I do have a pretty good routine. but it can be a little bit taxing on you, certainly on a sleep side.
Hey, Fish, you know what Ryan does? When he goes to Vegas, by the way, he's the king of Vegas. He walks well. I think you are. He walks through the sports book and he talks to people. Remember at the beginning of the podcast, he says to his brothers, get to know everybody. Yeah. So he gets to know everybody in the book. Of course, if he passed you in the book, he'd go, security. All right. But no, it's very smart because you like to hear other people's opinion. You know, the guys who live in the sports book. You've seen those guys. You know?
If he passed you in the sports book, he'd say, you're in the wrong spot. The buffet's that way.
I would be eating an In-N-Out burger.
I think like a sports book, and this is the one thing I really miss about boots on the ground, being in Vegas. And then, you know, I started after a while, after like I got limited at Caesar's Palace finally. And I'm like, this is a joke because I can go to Bahamas and I can sit in the fucking sun all day long and get a nice tan. And then I go to the sports book and they'll take like crazy amounts. And I didn't believe them. Like when the lady told me we'll take any amount you want on a game. And I'm like, I've heard that song and dance before. And the guy in front of me is on a Sunday, bet $125,000 on the Bills. And they took it without batting an eyelash. So I'm like, okay, you know, wow. But I mean, they got $50-60 million yachts lined up as far as the eye can see right outside. So, you know, I like that, but I miss Vegas because I really felt like I have a great connection with like all the people there and stuff. And it's a wealth of knowledge. Like if you want to know what the money distribution on a game is, go and talk to everyone at the sports book and you will be able to pretty much figure it out because, you know, I did a lot more listing than I did talking when I was at those sports books, but I just wanted to hear everyone's opinion. Like, you know, and you ask someone, hey, who do you like tonight in a sports book? And they're going to give you their life story. So, you know.
By the way, when you come to Vegas, I'm going to meet you there. I'm going to take you to Shucks Tavern, the best restaurant sports bar in town. There's this bartender who's kind of creepy. He works the graveyard. Oh, that's you, Fish. Sorry. But there it is. There it is, Ryan. We got to take you there, man.
You got an oyster bar out there? I'm absolutely going to show up.
Yeah, I'm your eyes and ears for the sports book. And I'll tell you, when you come out, I'll take you to the Circa, which is the sports book that Derek Stevens, you've already been there. It's insane. And I'm a sports bettor. So you're talking to a guy. I live in Vegas. I've been in Vegas over 30 some odd years. It is unbelievable how when I bartend, Brad sat there and watched it. Everyone has an opinion and everyone talks about the line. People that live here forever, we still talk about the line. We still talked about Houston and Kansas City. Can you believe that, Fish? Can you believe it was 9.5 and they got the thing? And you go through the same shit that we listen to, but you're in the game. You're actually you're monetizing how to you know to work this business. And it's look, you know what, Brian? If you were to tell me 10 years ago that we'd have pro sports in this town, I'd say you're an idiot. Now we have pro sports in this town. We're gonna get an NBA team soon, guarantee it. And the A's are coming in 3 years. Now, all your sports apps on my phone. I got the William Hill on my phone. I'm gonna have the Bender News on my phone pretty soon. Can you get it on your phone? Is there an app for your phone?
That's under development, but right now, I mean, you can still access it on your phone, but that's a work in progress. Like, despite the fact that I have owned multiple technology companies, I'm not good with technology at all. I just gotta think my way through it with my developers and like shake my head yes when they tell me things. So,
Ryan's got a great guy that works with him. His name is Rick. He handles the master class. My God, this guy is incredible. I've never seen him or met him, but I love his work. Right? How did you meet him?
He's an awesome guy. So actually, Rick was a subscriber to Masterclass. Like that's how we met. Like I'd never met him. He was a subscriber to Masterclass, and he used to email me every single day and be like, "How can I get involved with this?" And so like we started talking. Almost as friends, like in the beginning, then we did become like good, close friends. And he's really helped me because in the beginning, like my son wasn't born yet. So like I had all the time, but like I found like in the beginning, like we had like 60 people. So it was like, no problem. But then all of a sudden it's like, we have 800 and now we have over 1,000. And it's like, I was spending 5 hours a day doing like admin work and answering emails. So I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing. And I actually thought about just shutting it down because I'm like, this is not where I want to see my life going. So then like Rick we brought him in, and like he started doing like all the back end, which just freed up all that time for me just to go back and do what I love, which is capping sports.
Yeah. And
you're a guy after my own heart. I love this guy, Brad. This guy's right up
I
my
told
alley.
you putz. By the way, am I invited to Circa with you and Ryan?
Absolutely.
No? Really? I can go? Oh, thanks.
Brad,
thanks, Fish.
Well, Brad, you love sports too. I mean, Brad's the biggest
do.
NBA guy. He knows more about the NBA, Ryan, than I'm a football junkie. I will bet on the Canadian Football League,
Yeah. Speaking about basketball, last night Ryan had a 4-unit Lakers. Okay, and you're going to bet against the Celtics? You're crazy, right? It was a blowout.
They killed them.
Yeah.
So that was in our consensus group. Like I had the Lakers were like a 2-unit play, and like just like understand my unit size, and like the max that I ever comfortable betting on a game is 3% of your bankroll. Like I don't personally think there's any reason you need to go higher than that. And often my bets are like, 1/4% or 0.5%. But when you start dealing with big numbers, then, I'm betting $25,000 a unit. So when I have a 3-unit play, like I just can't get that money down. But consensus group, I got on the call and I'm like, look, I love the Lakers tonight. They were 5.5. I'm like, I love the Lakers right now. And they're like, oh, we're all over the Lakers. And like the one guy's like, I got a system like 73% on this. Like it never. So, what we do is we vote 1 to 5 units. So that was not my decision. I lobbied to be like, okay, let's cap it at 3. But they're like, oh, let's do like, 5 units. So yeah, we won a 4-unit play in consensus group, and they're pretty rare. They don't come out very often, but that was I think that was a really, really good spot. And I also think that when I saw that line at 5.5, I'm like, pardon my French, but every public asshole on earth is going to hang themselves on a money line parlay on this fucking Boston team right now. And like, they're looking like, oh, how are they not going to win this game? Right. And they're getting a good price on money line, but I'm not going to go as far to say it was a trap line, but it was certainly, there was so much sharp money on that, and you still saw the line go from 5.5 to 6.5. That's how much public money came in on Boston, because the public almost never moves a line. They're rarely doing it, but I forget what the exact number was that it had, but I think they were up around like the 80% of bets coming in were on Boston for it. So, yeah.
Oh man, Ryan is incredible. This guy just tells the truth. And in sports betting, you don't. All these clowns give half to one side, half to the other side. I'm doing 80%, all this crap. They're great salesmen, but then you're like, oh my God, I lost. But my buddy won, right? It's really sad. People lose so much money.
Look, can I ask one more question about football, Brad?
Yeah, sure.
The injury factor. So we're following this very big in Las Vegas, and it's all over everything. It's on the VSiN network. Jalen Hurts today is going to be limited, and there's a chance he doesn't play. The line is 6. What do you think it goes to, Ryan, if it's Kenny Pickett playing Jalen Hurts? Does it go down to 3? Can it move that much, or is it 4.5? What is it, you think?
I certainly, if he doesn't play, and that was a big question, and certainly, another factor in taking an early under, right? You're taking a chance. If he plays for sure, does that line go up over 48? Possibly, but then you're dealing with weather as well. But when the actual line itself, I do think being a multi-tool guy that Hurts will have a pretty big impact on what that line will be. 3 is a very, very key number, as we all know in football. It's a very, very key number, okay? Does it cross over 3 if he doesn't play? I don't know. Potentially, because, look, you're dealing with a team that is just finding ways to win in Washington. And, I feel like maybe based on the amount of steam that's been out there on Philly, and you're not seeing any steam on Washington so far, that maybe there's some people who may have talked to a guy who knows a guy who was like, okay, we think Hurts is probably going. I can't say that for sure. I'm just going based on the fact that I'm just seeing a lot of steam on Philadelphia, and maybe the Hurts potential injury still might be priced into that. But again, if he's confirmed, where does it go? It doesn't go over 7. There's no way
No.
they're going to let it go over 7. So maybe it goes 6.5. I don't even think it goes to 7. So it's like they're in a pretty tight spot where, if I was betting Philly on the line and you missed out early on, I think you have to wait till right before game time, because I think you have some protection. You have protection that you're not going to go to 7. It'd be very unlikely to go to 7. And you can pick up some upside if he doesn't play, you can either not bet it or you can bet it at a much better line. But that's what I'd be doing if I was looking to bet on Philly right now. Yeah.
Interesting story, Fish, about Ryan. I think you told me you were in the hospital. You had COVID or something like that, and you got out of the hospital. And I texted, I go, Ryan, go home, relax. Where does Ryan go? To the casino, and he wins 10 grand. Correct? Is that how
I sent you the picture, and I was fully like, so I had a bunch of things like back to back. I was over my COVID, but then I got like bronchitis turned into pneumonia, and then I was coughing so bad that I threw my back out, and it was like the most excruciating pain. So Brad's like, look, you got to get some rest and get better. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's not my game plan right now.
It's Ryan's got more stories than Mark Twain. Let me tell you about this. This guy it's a credit. You ever think of writing a book, Ryan?
Yeah. And so I started one. Oh. And that's about where it is right now. I got my chapters outlined and stuff. And like, I'm trying to make it a good balance of education and like the stories and experiences that I've dealt with. Because for me, like, it's 22 years now, and it's been a pretty crazy 22 years. If there's time after on the podcast, I would love to share one story, but
no.
Yeah, this is your podcast. Go.
No, this is your baby. Yeah. Give us that
story. Yeah. I talked about it on social media the other day, because with all the noise and everything out there, and look, I've done some videos and people have seen it where like I got a couple supercars, right? I mean, I got a McLaren, I got a Lamborghini, but like, I don't use it as like, okay, like, you're going to get instantly rich. As a matter of fact, I tell people, I say like, I've been nicknamed Boring Bender by myself because I do things boringly. I don't have these massive goat wheel parlays. I don't have the locks of the year. So like people that join, like, you're going to make money off compound interest and growth. But I did a video yesterday where like I showed my 2 cars, and I'm like, okay, people see this in sports betting and they think, well, I'm going to follow this guy and I'm going to get a Lamborghini in a year. Well, it's not going to happen. In my first year of sports betting, when I almost left sports betting altogether, I had built up, I put like $1,000 deposit in my account. I was 19 years old, put $1,000 deposit, and I built it up over the NFL season by like end of December to over 20 grand. And in 2 days of football, college and NFL, I lost it all. I spent my entire season and I blew up my bankroll. And that was not the first time I did that. Like, I blew up my bankroll so many times, but when you have $20,000 at 19, that's all the money in the world. And I walked around like a zombie for a month. Like I felt like the biggest asshole on this planet. And I was very close to quitting sports betting altogether. And I finally made the decision. I'm like, look, I keep winning, but then I keep making stupid decisions. If I can eliminate the stupid part of me, then I can do this. So I made a conscious decision that I was going to do it again last time. If I ever deviated from bankroll management in the slightest way, like any little stupid parlays, any chasing, any of that, I was done sports betting forever. So I was nervous I was still going to do it, but I ended up keeping my promise to myself. So I was working 3 jobs. And then 4 days a week, I was delivering pizzas at night. So I was doing all-nighters around the clock.
Wow.
Because anything to get money into my bankroll, because my goal was I get to $100,000 and then I'm going to become professional. I'm going to bet 1% or $1,000 a play, and I'm going to go to Vegas and be a professional. So I got it up to $80,000, combination of working and winning at sports betting. It took about a year and a half. And then at that point, I was 21 or so. I was definitely over 21 because I was in Vegas. I get to Vegas and I made $80,000. And when I hit 100, I'm going to be pro. And I went on a run, and like that, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm over 100,000. So then this whole thing starts to be a reality. Like, am I actually going to do this? And that was where I said my father was probably the reason why I did go through with my dreams, is because I needed that little push. I was scared. Like, I was still scared. Like, guys, like, I was scared that I was going to fuck up still. Like, I still in the back of my mind is like, I'm going to have a bad weekend. I'm going to blow it all up. Like, that was still in my mind. So I got that push from my dad. But the reason I go into this story is because I want to tell you what the first year of professional sports betting really is. So people have a real idea what professional sports betting is, because it's not supercars and yachts in the beginning. I was out in Vegas. Okay. I was betting $1,000 a game, and I decided I'm going to pay myself a salary because I want to build my bankroll up and be able to bet more. So I paid myself $2,000 a month. Now, Eric, you're out in Vegas. $2,000 a month does not get you very far at all. So I was staying at the most seedy, awful places you could ever imagine. The one place I stayed at, there was literally a hole through the middle of the door where someone had tried to kick it in, and the light used to shine in, and I used to have to sleep the opposite way on the bed because the light would shine in a way where it would be in my eye. So these are the places I was staying at. I used to go down, and you'll probably remember, I used to go down and eat almost every single day at the Golden Gate because they had a 99-cent shrimp cocktail.
Yeah. Wow.
99-cent shrimp cocktail, $1.99 chicken soup. And I used to ask the lady, could I get a handful of the saltine crackers? And after a couple months of going there, she walks into the back, she comes out with a box. I said, what's this? She goes, it's our crackers. She got me a box of their crackers. She took mercy on my soul.
Oh, and my goodness.
I had a box of crackers in my hotel room. Barely a hotel room, Motel Dive. And I had a box of ramen noodles. That is what I lived on as a sports bettor. And I had some nights where it's like, I can't do this anymore. And I actually had one day when I was out there, all the emotion of it, everything, I broke down. I was crying in my hotel room, and I was trying to cry quietly because I could hear people outside the door at 3:00 in the morning, drinking and laughing. Ugh. And it wasn't like I had a bad run. I was actually doing very well. It was just all the emotion. Pardon me. All the emotion. But then the next morning I woke up and I just felt like fantastic.
Ryan, there's two things I want to do here before you depart. First of all, Ryan will be coming to LA. He talked to his beautiful wife, and they're going to get into show business. And yes. I have a movie written by Steve Haberman, the great Steve Haberman, who is Mel Brooks's right-hand guy. And it's a horror film called Slices. And we're really excited to start production on that. And it's going to be so much fun because Steve Haberman wrote this movie 25 years ago, and this is his first directing. And by the way, Fish is in it. I don't even know if that's going to work. Yeah,
don't do that.
Yeah, because you want to act, and I'm like, you're going to be in the pizza parlor with me as my assistant. Can you deliver a line, Fish? No.
You don't need an assistant. You're not going to. There'll be no lines. You'll be eating the pizza and you'll get killed.
I will. I don't have any dialogue. I just eat pizza and then I get killed in the alley. But I want to end by going around the horn here. Football, basketball, and baseball. I will start. Buffalo wins it all. Number 2, OKC wins it all in the NBA. And 3, the Dodgers repeat. Ryan?
Yes.
What? Yeah, give me your 3.
Man.
So, that's tough, yeah.
Honestly, it is tough because, I want to say Bills. I think if the Bills win this week, they win it all. I'll go Bills. I'll go Bills. It's kind of more with my heart. Like I'm not betting on that right now, but I'll go Bills. For NBA, I'm going to say whatever team the NBA decides. And then for baseball, you'd be crazy to bet against the Dodgers because they're going to spend. But look, I do agree with you with OKC. They are an absolute weapon of a team. And when they decide to play defense, they can. And that's an important factor because when you look at these high-scoring teams in the NBA, they tend to just get bombed when it comes to postseason because teams actually tighten up and play defense. It's less like an all-star game and more like how the NBA was 20 years ago. So I think they can have a really good, legit shot because they can not only score, but they can play a good, solid defensive game when they feel like it.
Okay, and that's great. Yeah, I am a big Golden State fan because I went to school with Steve Kerr, and he's a buddy of mine. So I got my dad on it. My 92-year-old dad goes, "Hey, the Golden State Warriors are playing the Lakers on Saturday." I go, "Yep," and he goes, "Are you gonna watch it?" I go, "Yeah, with you." How about you, Fish? Tell me, what do you think? Give me your
Philadelphia
three.
Eagles, Cleveland Cavaliers, Los Angeles Dodgers.
So we have a consensus on the Dodgers.
Okay.
I like the Eagles. I like that play. It's just I struggle with that game because like I'm a big believer in like in with streaks and stuff like that. And my whole thing with betting is if you bet on a streak, okay, you can be right many times on that streak, but if you're betting against it, you can only be right once. Like I see guys like they tried in baseball, a team's on like a 9-game winning streak and they keep betting against this team. And it's like, you know, what if they end up going on an 18-game winning streak? Like, what are you going to do? And the streaks scare me a little bit. It's not like I follow streaks. It's not like I just am afraid to fade them. And this Washington team is finding ways to win football games and to do it fairly impressively. So I like your play.
You know what it is? You know what it is, Ryan? They have the number one rushing offense and the least amount of sacks given and the number one defense in the NFL. And I always think defense means a lot in those games.
Yeah.
No one could stop Saquon Barkley. He's had 100 yards in he's Jim Brown of our era. So I'm rooting for Buffalo. Right. I want Brad to, you know, Brad's went, and I love that fan base. But I got a gut. Sometimes you get a gut feeling. It doesn't mean shit. But I have a gut feeling. So
hey Ryan, Oh no, I was just going to say, Ryan. I know our audience and our listeners would like to hear. You went from the Crack House Motel, and now where do you stay when you're in Vegas?
Wherever I want. I haven't. I honestly, in all honesty, I have not paid for a Vegas hotel room in 10 years. Like I have like RFB, like, you know, room, food, beverage, flight. Like I'm taken care of very well. I do a lot at the Caesars properties, or I did before I got limited at Caesars Palace. Which so you know what? Well, yeah, okay. So I'll give you the quick thing. What happened with that? So I've been like, that was my main hub. That was like, I love that place. And it was fairly central. So like back in the day, I used that as like my office. And cause I could get over to Bellagio quickly. I could get up the street. There was a lot of sports books in that area. So, few years ago, I'm there and I walk up to the counter, and this is like the detrimental side of like being out in the public, right? So I walk up to the counter, and I know things are changing with tax codes and things like that and being a Canadian. So they slide me a form, like I'm trying to like place some bets. They slide me a form and they're like, you need to fill this out. And I'm like, well, what is it? It's like, it's just, you know, to allow you to bet here. I'm like, okay, like this was a new thing, but it looked like an official form. I'm like, is this government? They're like, no, it's an internal thing, but you need to fill it out. So like I'm filling, he goes, really? He goes, I just need you to fill out like your name, address, and occupation. But I'm like, you have my player's card. You know who I am. And then, so for occupation, I put down sales. And so I turn it back, and he turns it around, slides it back to me, goes, you need to put your occupation as professional sports bettor. I'm like, oh
boy.
So, okay, that's what that is. But you know what? I mean, Vegas, I love Vegas. It's my second home. I mean, every single time I fly in, I've flown in hundreds of times. Every time I fly in, I get butterflies in my stomach. Like this is where I was meant to be in this world. I love it. But from a service standpoint and from like an overall experience, I have to say it's gone downhill just a little bit in terms of my personal experience, because like Vegas is so afraid. They're so afraid to get like burned by, you know, by sharp bettors that they're like, they give away so much money. Like I had one guy who told me sportsbook manager. He's like, if they would let me control the limits here and they give people like $50,000, $100,000 bets, I would make them 10 times the money they make right now. But they sit in these fucking boardrooms and they talk all day long about how do we stop the 1% of people out there that can beat us. They're so worried about the 1% that the 99% can't bet the money that they should be able to bet, right? And I'll tell you this, like, if you want to like spot a guy who Vegas has no respect for, you got these guys out there tweeting, they bet $500,000 on this, they bet $1 million on that. Well, DraftKings is accepting $1 million bets, absolutely, but not from sharps. They're taking that from,
guys like Fish. Ryan, this has been unbelievable.
Ryan, for bagging on my city and some of the guys that might want to finance our podcast.
You know what? I absolutely, I love, I know. I love Vegas, and it's just like, to me, it's like, I think my experiences there have gone like, I don't know. It's just, I look at what it was, and I think maybe a little bit of the anger is like, you guys have the edge, right? You guys are the ones that set the lines. You guys have your minus 110 at Caesars. Like, that's your edge. Like, why are you saying that I cannot bet what this person can bet, and so on and so forth?
You're looking at it from one angle. Living here, we look at it as you fly in and
taking
you
your
get
money.
Butterflies because you see that strip, and it's the biggest party in the world. Forget everything you do. It's a party in a club every night. Brad should live here because he'd love all the action.
Yeah.
I have 3 very different trips that I take to Vegas, and it's actually funny you bring that up because Vegas is 3.
Wrap it up, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
We will.
Yeah, it's 3 completely different places for me. Number 1 is when I go out there on my own solo. I'm working, like I'm not going crazy. Then I go out there with my friends and it's like just a complete shit show, like just 3 days of insanity. And then I go out with my wife and it's like a little more tame. We have some fun. We grab a bottle of Fireball and we walk the strip and we don't finish until it's gone.
Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah. It's our Fireball walk.
I love it.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
Hey, Fish, you're out.
Get out of
Ryan's in.
North.
We're going to have our own, it's going to be Ryan's World. And good luck to you. We'll come by Shucks and see you. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to bring you back. Okay, buddy?
Absolutely, guys. This was an absolute pleasure. Fish, it was great to meet you. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Right. This has been fun.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Anytime you come to Vegas, you need a meal, let me know. I'll take care of you. It's called a comp. And I'm sure you know what that is.
I'm going to be sitting right next to Ryan.
Well, wait a minute, Brad. I'll take you to places in Vegas.
Are you done yet?
Take Brad. No, hang on. Shut up. I will take this guy to places in Vegas that I can't take you.
Okay. Oh, God.
I'm down. Well, I look forward to it.
It's going to be fun. Ryan, you stay well, stay healthy, and stay happy. We'll talk soon. Fish, let's bring it to a close. Number 94, baby. We'll see you next time on Fat Fish.
You've been listening to the Fat Fish Podcast, heard on all your favorite platforms.
Yeah.
Until next time.